Don't act all high and mighty over a measly $12,000. You're useless. Try cutting off your financial support and see if I care. Even though I've been sending money to my brother and his wife for 10 years, why do they have to berate me like this? Fine by me. With that, I firmly hung up the phone. They should be the ones worried, not me. I won't help them anymore, no matter what happens. My name is Angela. I live with my husband Niles and our son Seth. Niles is incredibly kind. He actively helps around the house and spends quality time with Seth. I've been living a happy life, but I have a concern. It's about my older brother Freddie and his wife Isla, who live in our family home. Our mom, named Jean, retired and moved back home after Freddie and Isla declared they would take care of her. Growing up in a single-parent household, I was worried, so I gladly accepted Freddie's offer. To show my gratitude, I've been sending Mom $12,000 every month. But things seemed off after Freddie and Isla started managing the money. Whenever I forgot to send the money, Isla would angrily call me. Each time, I'd rush to transfer the funds. Mom's behavior also seemed strange lately. She's been distant on the phone, often comparing me to Freddie. Freddie has always struggled academically and isn't athletic. Mom used to complain about how Freddie didn't study as much as I did, but now the tables have turned. I didn't understand why Mom's attitude changed, but I never stopped the financial support. At the beginning of a new month, Isla calls my cell phone as usual. "Did you forget this month's money? What's the deal?" she scolds. "I'm sorry. I'll transfer it right away." "You're so clumsy. How do you even manage to raise a child?" Isla berated me, urging me to transfer the money quickly. I felt like I was being extorted and uneasy about the whole situation. Is this how financial support is supposed to work? Isla's aggressive behavior started when she first met our family. The first time she saw me, she scoffed. "Who's this plain girl?" "Freddie's sister." No way. I was taken aback. I never expected such a comment from someone I just met. Mom defended me, and I remember that clearly. Isla's attire was a miniskirt and a flashy leopard print jacket. "Isn't it inappropriate to wear that to meet your fiance's family?" I thought so, but I didn't say anything. Isla's behavior only escalated from there. I vented to my husband, who was also upset. I found solace, but the idea of having her as family was disconcerting. However, Freddie wasn't the most sensible person either, so I assumed I'd get used to it. Their behavior worsened after moving into the family home. I wondered if Mom was okay living with them, but with work and raising Seth, I couldn't visit Mom and was left in the dark about the details of her well-being. Amidst our busy lives, Mom suddenly called at the end of the month as usual. I had just dropped my son off at the child care center and was about to head to work when I received a phone call from her. "What's wrong?" I asked, but Mom sounded furious. When I asked her to explain, she said something outrageous. "Where's this month's money?" I was shocked. I had already sent the money at the beginning of the month. I told her I transferred it to Freddie's account, but she angrily claimed she hadn't received it. Surprised, I asked her to check again, but she wouldn't listen. "You've become so irresponsible after all I did to raise you. Right now, you're sending less money. You're so ungrateful." I did send the $12,000. Enough excuses. Send the $12,000 now. If I don't get it next month, I'll cut ties with you. Learn from Freddie. He always sends $500 on time. Why am I expected to send $1.02 to 000 when Freddie only sends $500? Angry, I yelled back that I did send the money and hung up. It might have been a bit childish, but I wanted to be clear about the money. If Mom's going to unfairly scold me again next month, I need to check in with my brother. There's a chance his wife is up to something. Determined, I headed to work, my footsteps echoing with frustration. The next month, as usual, I got a call from my sister-in-law. "Did you forget this month? I always tell you to transfer at the beginning of the month, don't I?" I asked her about Mom's behavior last month, to which she responded, "Oh, she might have been a bit upset, but I leave everything about Mom to Freddie. If you're concerned, ask him." More importantly, make sure you transfer the $1.02 to 000. Got it? She hung up without waiting for an answer. Taking her advice, I decided to contact my brother. Hey, I wanted to talk about Mom, I said. He responded with annoyance. What now? I told him about the angry call from Mom last month and how she was upset about not receiving the money. To my shock, he said, we're struggling too. Since moving back home, we decided to give Mom $500 from your $12,000 and $500 from my salary. We used the rest this month. We had some extra expenses, so we used all of your $1.02 to 000. I was stunned. I couldn't fathom that my money was being used by my brother instead of Mom. Filled with anger, I confronted him, but he skillfully dodged my questions, leaving me feeling helpless. I hung up, contemplating whether I should inform Mom about the situation. Calling her, I relayed everything my brother had said, but she refused to listen. You're just making excuses. You probably didn't send the money this month either. I sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay me, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. Feeling helpless, I asked Mom to switch to a video call to prove that I had properly transferred $12,000. Mom hesitated but eventually switched to a video call. I displayed my bank card with the transaction history, hoping she would understand. However, Mom remained skeptical. You probably faked this. I heard on the news that it's easy to make these things now. Just pay this month's amount, and we'll talk after that, she insisted. I transferred the $12,000, hoping that it would resolve the issue. Mom, acting high and mighty, demanded to see my brother's bank card as well before hanging up. Trusting Mom and my brother, I transferred the money for the current month, believing that she would realize I was right. However, a few days later, I received another angry call from Mom. Confused, I waited for her to explain. She angrily claimed that she hadn't received the money for this month and was struggling to make ends meet. I insisted that I transferred the money on the day I called her and suggested checking with my brother. When I called my brother, he responded gruffly, claiming that Isla had the bank card, and it was none of my business how they used the money. Frustrated, I contacted my sister-in-law, who nervously laughed and admitted, "Oops, got caught. I saw the transfer from you and immediately withdrew the $12,000 to buy a designer bag. I plan to repay it soon, but I work part-time and haven't received my paycheck yet." I was incredulous. That money was intended for Mom, not for their leisure. Angrily, I demanded she return the $12,000. However, my sister-in-law snapped back, "Don't act all high and mighty over just $1.02 to 000. You're useless. You're a full-time worker. You must have more money. Just transfer another $1.02 to 000. I was furious. I couldn't believe my money was being used like this. That weekend, I went straight to my parents' house, and my brother and sister-in-law seemed surprised by my sudden visit. Mom welcomed me in, asking if I brought the money. I stated that I had transferred the money and wanted to confirm it, intending to see my brother's bank card. When I confronted my sister-in-law, she made a disgusted face. "Ila, you have the bank card, right? Show it to me." "Why should I show it to you?" "Because I transferred $12,000 to my brother's account," I insisted. However, she refused to show me. "You said you'd return it, right? You've received your paycheck by now, haven't you?" When I glared at her, she tried to dodge the question. "You're trying to blame me for not transferring, aren't you? I've transferred it properly." As we argued, Mom shouted in anger, "Angela, enough. I thought you brought the money. Ila would never misuse it." She pushed me towards the door. "If you came here for that, then go home. You're no longer my daughter." In my anger, I retorted, "Fine, I'll stop sending money. You might not know, but my brother and his wife aren't as good as you think. They told me they only give you $500 out of the $1.02 to 000 I send. They're deceiving you." "You're lying." "Then I won't send money anymore," I declared. My brother sneered. "Go ahead and stop. If you do, we're done." Gladly, I left my family home with those words. I'm done. I won't help them anymore, no matter what happens. When I told my husband about what happened at my family home, he comforted me, saying, Angela, you've been sending $12,000 for 10 years. It's okay to stop. Don't worry about it. Plus, your brother and his wife are there, right? They'll manage somehow. You're right. I'm sorry it came to this. It's okay. It's not your fault. Besides, sending money is a gesture of goodwill, right? Everyone's an adult. If they wanted to, they could get full-time jobs. You don't need to worry about them. Hearing that from my husband, I felt reassured. Right. Sending money is a matter of goodwill. My brother is an adult and has ways to earn money. I don't need to support my brother and mom's life, nor should I be forced to. I guess I've always felt obligated because I've been cleaning up after my brother and mom's mistakes for so long. I've always wondered why you had to take care of your family and brother. It seemed strange, but I thought you were okay with it. Then it was fine. But now your family is me and Seth, right? You can help your family and brother if something happens. But you don't need to guarantee their livelihood every month. Hearing that from my husband felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Then, in the middle of the next month, my mobile phone rang incessantly. It was my brother and his wife. I had planned to sever ties with them, so I was curious about the call. Hello? Why didn't you send money this month? I told you I'd stop. Besides, you don't need it. You have each other, huh? Are you sure about that? We're done. I have nothing to do with you anymore, I said, hanging up. That evening, my sister-in-law was waiting outside my house when I returned from work, holding my son's hand. I was taken aback as she approached me aggressively, berating me in the hallway of my condo. Do you think you can get away with this? What do you mean? We've cut ties. Don't come here again. Hearing that, she stomped her foot in anger, yelling and cursing. Someone from the neighborhood must have called the police because they arrived shortly after. She was taken away by the police. In disbelief, I immediately called my brother. Lus stormed into your place and got arrested. Why did that happen? It's cruel of you to call the police. We're family. I didn't call them. Someone else did. Can you please have her stop asking for money? It's a bad influence on my son, and I don't want anything to do with you anymore. When I firmly responded, my brother went silent and then began pleading in a weak voice. Look, I work part-time, and Ula works part-time too. Mom's pension is small, and we can't live without your $12,000. You get that right. Most of the $12,000 goes to Ula's leisure, so you should be fine, right? No, it's not like that. Sure, she spends a bit recklessly. But we need the $12,000 for our lives. Please send it this month. Why should I support you? You probably only give Mom $500 anyway, I replied, hanging up. I decided never to answer calls from my brother or sister-in-law again. I received many texts from my brother, but I only looked at them and ignored them. My sister-in-law kept trying to contact me, which was annoying. But maybe because she was arrested, she didn't come to my house. A few months later, I finally got a call from Mom. Angela, Freddie hasn't been giving me money lately. I'm struggling. I was mad before, but I realized I only have you. Mom's voice sounded weak. She then started complaining about how my brother and his wife had been treating her lately. They're terrible. They don't even give me $500 now, and they're living off of my pension. I told them to get full-time jobs if they need money, but they don't listen. Lud is hardly ever home. What should I do? Mom began to cry in a heartbroken voice. However, I didn't feel sympathy for her. I had trusted both Mom and my brother, but they betrayed me. On top of that, they told me we were done to begin with. I went to college without borrowing money from Mom. I even paid off my brother's student loans that Mom had been burdened with. That's more than enough. Mom, if you don't want your pension taken by them, why not kick them out of the house? They're adults. They can manage on their own. I gave that piece of advice and ended the call with Mom. She seemed to want to say more, but I had made up my mind not to get involved. They can figure things out on their own. I have my own challenges to deal with. In the end, it seems Mom kicked out my brother and his wife because of their terrible attitude. Having been evicted, they apparently moved into an old apartment. Since that incident, Mom hasn't been very involved in my life, perhaps feeling awkward. Once my brother called, he kept trying to contact me, and when I answered, he said they were in debt because of his wife's excessive spending. He asked for help, but I ignored him. I no longer see Mom, but I live happily with my son and husband.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.